In this photo, the big pink circles is where the massacre took place. In this photo, you see colored in dark red is what we know to be the current nation of Armenia. The shaded white area is where several Armenians were living before the genocide occurred. So you can see that many of them were living in Turkey before the massacre happened, in Turkey, which was then Ottoman Empire. And depicted in the lighter red color are neighboring countries where many Armenians live today. The orange area is of the ancient kingdom of Armenia, dated all the way back to about 300 BC. The red dashed like lines, that's the territory of the Armenian province which was then the Ottoman Empire. So as you can see, large parts of what was then the Ottoman Empire had high percentages of Armenians living there. Well, although we know this is no longer the case because, of course, they don't like each other, but I think Armenians had well enough reason not to like them too. In this photo, this is a close-up of the Eastern Province, and again, the pink is where the massacre took place. Okay, so in this map, this is the Armenian diaspora, so the spread of the Armenians now. And I know you can barely read it, so I'll just read about 3 of them for you. So the top, the very dark red color, the very, very top color, those are the countries with 3 million to 100,000 Armenians living there. The gray color along the very bottom, those are the countries with no Armenians. The pink color right above that, that is countries with 900 or fewer Armenians. So you see, as we get like to the lighter colors, there's fewer Armenians living in those places, and in the darker colors, there's more. So the red color under the dark red color, so the second to the first one, those are the countries with 70,000 to 30,000 Armenians.
So we're going to talk about the Armenian Genocide and what exactly occurred. So basically, a little bit right before World War I, there was a group called the Young Turks, and they basically had a resentment towards Armenian people before they even decided to kill them off. And so the Young Turks had a secret meeting right before World War I in 1911, and their plan was to Turkify the Muslims and to exterminate the Armenians living in the Ottoman Empire. So basically, if you know anything about the Holocaust, it's a little bit similar. They just kind of wanted to, have their people look the same and be, unique. Over time, the Young Turks went from less militant to highly authoritarian. And so 2 people came into power over the Young Turks who were the most militant that they had ever seen. And their names were Enver Pasha and Talat Pasha. And Enver was the Minister of Military Affairs and Talat was the Interior Minister. And they came into power during a violent overthrow. Armenians who already knew that the Young Turks kind of resisted them, they were very fearful, and they capitalized on the Ottoman defeat in the First Balkan War to press for reforms and appeal to European powers for help to force the Young Turks to accept a degree of autonomy in the Armenian provinces. And so basically what this did, they kind of were trying to go to them for help before it even, escalated, but it kind of didn't work in their favor because the Young Turks saw this as a form of treason. While the European powers did help them, they imposed a major reform on the Ottomans that required supervision by inspectors in the East. And like I said, this was seen as conspiracy or treason. When World War I began, the Young Turks joined the Central Powers, made up of Germany and Austria, against the Triple Entente, which was Great Britain, France, and Russia. The Armenians who lived in the Russian areas refused to fight with the Ottomans, which led to what the Young Turks saw as their final act of treason, even though they knew that some Armenians lived in Russia and some lived in Turkey, which kind of caused a drift in between them. And so that was their final act, and that is when the Armenian Genocide began. So after suffering the worst Ottoman defeat in the war in January 1915, the Young Turks just decided to let's just blame this on the Armenians, and they saw it as treachery. And so what they did was began to kill people off that were Armenian and other non-Muslims. So what they did was they demobilized the army and transferred them into labor battalions per Enver Paşa's orders. He then ordered them to be systematically eliminated, basically genocide, leaving them to be the first victims. At the same time, irregular forces began to carry out mass killings in Armenian villages near the Russian border, and the remainder was deported to Anatolia. In April 1915, the Armenians in Van barricaded themselves in the city's Armenian neighborhood and fought back against the Ottoman troops. In turn, against the resistance, Talat ordered the arrest of approximately 250 Armenian intellectuals, which included poets, politicians, anybody who made laws. And so most of these men were killed in the months that followed or on their way there. In May 1915, the first international response to the violence was in a joint statement by the Triple Entente, where the Turkish atrocities against the Armenians were defined as crime against humanity and civilization. Between the summer and fall months of 1915, Armenian civilians were basically removed from their houses and marched through the valleys and mountains of eastern Anatolia into desert concentration camps.